Yo, what's up, you guys? Today I want to share an amazing story from Neville Goddard's book, The Law and the Promise. That's stinking dope. You know what I'm saying? Because it's about this one guy who tried to prove Neville Goddard wrong, not believing that imagining creates reality. And you'll be surprised on how far this guy eventually took it too, trying to prove it to himself and to other people. You're going to love this. But before I get into it, hit that subscribe button and the bell right next to it to get your weekly dose of inspirational stories, tips, and teachings. Did you do it? Trust me, you don't want to miss them. Alright, let's do this. As the story goes, there was this one mildly successful dancing teacher who did his thing for almost 5 years. And at the end of that time, he met a young lady who talked him into attending Neville's lectures. And when he heard Neville say that imagining creates reality, he thought it was freaking ridiculous. However, he decided to accept Neville's challenge, wanting to disprove his thesis. So he bought Neville's book called Out of This World, and he read it a bunch of times. But still, he wasn't convinced. So he set for himself an ambitious goal, because at the time he was just an instructor with the Arthur Murray Dance Studio. So to test his quote-unquote theory out, his goal was to own a franchise and to be the boss of an Arthur Murray studio himself. Thing is though, it seemed so unlikely for it to happen, because franchises were extremely difficult to secure. And on top of that, he didn't even have the money for this kind of operation. But he assumed the feeling of his wish fulfilled, where night after night, in his imagination, he went to sleep managing his own studio. 3 weeks later, a friend called him up from Reno, Nevada, who had a Murray studio there, who told him that it was too much for him to cope with alone. See where this is going? So get this, the friend offered him a partnership, which got him so pumped up. In fact, he was so excited that he moved to Reno on borrowed money and forgot all about Neville and his story of imagination. Anyway, him and his partner worked really hard and became very successful. But after a year, he still wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. So he started thinking about different ways of getting another studio, but unfortunately, none of them panned out. Then one night he was restless and decided to read. And as he looked through his collection of books, he noticed Neville's slender volume of Out of This World, the one he read before, and thought about the quote-unquote silly nonsense he'd gone through 1 year earlier before getting his own studio. Then bam, it was a light bulb moment for him. He already got his own studio. And the reminder hit him hard. And so he reread the book that night and practiced imagining again. But this time, he heard his superior praise them for the good job they'd done in Reno and suggested they acquire a second studio because he had a second location ready for them if they wanted to expand. And he reenacted this imaginal scene every night without fail. Check this out. 3 weeks from the first night of his imaginal drama, it materialized, almost word for word, where his partner accepted the new studio in Bakersfield while he had the studio in Reno alone. Then he was absolutely convinced of the power of imagining and even tried telling other people about it too, like his staff, just wanting to share the knowledge. But it was whack because they didn't believe him, except this one young teacher who did believe his story, but said it probably would have happened anyway in time, because he thought the entire theory was nonsense. But the teacher did put out a challenge to him though, saying that if he could tell him something of an incredible nature that would actually happen and that he could witness, then he'd believe. And so he accepted his challenge. Here's the thing. The Reno studio was the most insignificant in the entire Murray system because of its small population count in the city itself, so it wasn't as impressive. So his test was this. He told a young skeptical teacher that within 3 months, at the time of the National Dance Convention, the little Reno studio would be the most important topic of the conversation at the convention. And the teacher told him it's impossible. So that night, when he went to bed, here's what he did. He felt himself standing before a huge audience, speaking on creative imagining. And he even felt the nervousness of being in front of all those people. But he also felt the wonderful sensation of audience acceptance, where he heard the roar of their applause. And as he left the stage, he saw Mr. Murray himself come forward and shake his hand. And he reenacted this entire drama night after night, where it took on the tones of reality. So he knew he'd done it again. Why? Because his imaginal drama literally materialized down to the last detail. Because his little Reno studio was a talk at the convention, and he did appear on stage just as he did in his imagination. But look, even after all that amazing stuff happened, the young skeptical teacher still wasn't convinced, saying it all happened too naturally, blah, 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 and would have happened anyway. Good thing he didn't give a rip about the teacher's attitude this time, because the challenge gave him another opportunity to prove, at least to himself, that this stuff stinking works, that imagining does create reality. Oh, and one last thing. Mr. Murray eventually called him up and offered him a studio in his city, get this, of 1.5 million people. Boom. So there you go. You want to know if this stuff works, you guys? Then test it out yourself, straight up. You get what you believe. Yeah. Enough said. Alrighty, guys, don't forget to hit that like button and to leave a review if you're listening via podcast. In case you didn't know, it gets more people to discover my work and, of course, help spread this message. And yo, don't forget to register for my free online training that'll seriously help you start manifesting the life you really want right now. So check it out. The link's in the description. Like I always say, more's coming. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.